This is OwlUp, where learning happens in minutes, not hours. For a deeper journey, explore all our courses at owlup.co. Now, let's dive in. Welcome back to Chapter 3 of How Courts Actually Work, Justice Demystified, where we're diving into one of the most fascinating parts of our legal system, ordinary people deciding someone's fate as jurors. We'll explore how regular citizens become the ultimate decision-makers in courtrooms, and why this system has been the backbone of justice for centuries. Let's get into it. A dozen strangers can overrule the government, and they do it in a single word: guilty or not. You might never be called, yet your neighbors could decide the fate of someone like you tomorrow. So here's the puzzle. Why trust amateurs with the hardest decisions a society makes? We've talked about juries as a kind of shared power, ordinary people stepping into a room and, for a brief time, holding more authority than almost anyone else in government. Now, zoom in on what that actually feels like. You're pulled from your routine, school drop-offs, shift work, scrolling your phone, and suddenly you're weighing lab reports, shaky memories, and confusing timelines while strangers watch your face for clues. No one hired you, you didn't campaign for this, and yet the system treats your collective judgment as the final word. That awkward mix of duty and discomfort is not a bug, it's the point. A justice system run only by professionals might move faster and speak in cleaner legal code, but it would lose the friction of real life, doubt, disagreement, and the messy perspective of people who have to live with the rules they're helping enforce. Inside the courtroom, that awkward mix of duty and discomfort gets channeled through strict structure, random summons, questioning and voir dire, rules about what you're allowed to hear, and a judge who acts like a traffic controller for information. The law insists that your verdict grow only from what appears in that confined space, even though you bring a whole lifetime of experience with you. The tension is deliberate. You're asked to set aside headlines, hunches, and Google searches, yet still use your everyday judgment to test whether the official story actually fits what you've just seen unfold. Look closely at how rarely this people's power is actually used. Most criminal cases end in plea bargains. Trials are the exception, not the rule. When a case does reach a courtroom, choosing a jury over a judge is a strategic fork in the road. Prosecutors might want a jury if the story is emotionally powerful but legally simple. Defense lawyers often prefer juries when the law is stacked against them, but the human details might spark doubt or sympathy. Corporations, meanwhile, routinely steer complex antitrust or patent fights to bench trials, betting that a judge will have more patience for dense economics or engineering than a lay panel. The law quietly shapes these choices. Some charges require a jury unless the defendant waives it. Others give both sides veto power over a bench trial. Research suggests that, when the same case is hypothetically given to both, judges and juries land on the same result most of the time, but not always, and those edge cases are where the system's design philosophy shows. A judge, trained to separate emotion from doctrine, might convict where a jury balks at shaky eyewitnesses or a confession that feels wrong. Other times, a jury swept up in outrage might convict on thin proof, and a judge would have held the government to a stricter standard. Technology is slowly creeping into this balance. Some courts experiment with giving jurors digital access to exhibits or allowing note-taking on tablets. That sounds mundane, but it changes who speaks up in the deliberation room. The person who can instantly pull up the photo or contract page has quiet power. And whenever evidence involves phones, apps, or algorithms, jurors end up evaluating not just what happened, but how much to trust systems they barely see. Cell site maps, DNA databases, facial recognition hits. All of this makes jury duty less like passive watching and more like being dropped into a live, high-stakes lab. The law supplies the tools and the boundaries, but real people decide how skeptical to be of expert witnesses, how much weight to give digital trails, and when official explanations stop making sense. Some of the sharpest jury moments come when law and technology collide in ways no one scripted. In one federal fraud trial, jurors stared at a wall of bank transfer spreadsheets until a younger juror quietly asked for the raw CSV file. When the judge allowed it, Patterns of copy-paste errors and duplicated amounts suddenly jumped out, details the experts had skimmed past. In another case, an older juror who had repaired radios for decades became the key voice on whether a wiretap recording could have been edited. Lawyers on both sides ended up rephrasing their questions in terms he suggested. Think of deliberations like a pickup basketball game where no one knows in advance who can actually shoot, defend, or read the floor. A nurse may spot gaps in a medical chart. A warehouse worker may question whether a forklift could move the way a diagram claims. The formal roles stay the same, but the center of gravity shifts to whoever's real-world familiarity best fits the evidence dropped on the table. Jury rooms are starting to look less like sealed boxes and more like control panels for public values. As digital tools slip in, courts will have to decide: can jurors pause a video like a podcast, zoom into a photo like Instagram, or replay expert testimony on demand? Each yes shifts influence toward visual learners, tech-comfortable jurors, and lawyers who can design evidence like a clean app interface, and away from those who still rely mainly on memory and paper. As courts wire in more tech, the question quietly shifts from "can juries handle complexity?" to "whose experience counts as expertise?" The next time you stream a game, scroll a feed, or troubleshoot a glitchy app, remember, those same everyday skills might someday steer a verdict and nudge the law toward the world you actually live in. Before next week, ask yourself, 1. If I were called for jury duty tomorrow, how would I handle the tension between my gut reactions and the judge's instructions about beyond a reasonable doubt in a real case? 2. Thinking about the examples from the episode where juries struggled with complex evidence, what's one concrete step I could take today, like reading a plain language guide on legal terms or looking up how my local jury system works, to feel more prepared to serve fairly? 3. When the podcast talked about biases, race, class, prior experiences with police, which of my own assumptions about the kind of person who looks guilty made me uncomfortable, and how might those show up if I were sitting in that jury box? This was OwlUp, your daily step forward. To keep learning with structured courses and more insights, go to owlup.co. Until tomorrow!